Dolan was once the most feared dragon in the world, but after being betrayed by his allies, he is reincarnated as a newborn baby and must learn what it means to be human. The story begins with the human army successfully binding the mightiest dragon of this fantasy world in chains. Their so-called hero mercilessly drives his blade through the dragon's heart. The dragon doesn't understand why the humans are trying to subdue him after all. He remembers being their ally. He refrains from attacking, still considering them friends, and only asks to be spared from such cruel treatment. The lonely dragon, having existed for so long, no longer desires to fight these insignificant creatures. He offers little resistance and accepts his fate. As he crumbles away, he breaks his shackles and looks up at the sky, begging the gods for eternal peace for his soul. However, the gods seem to have other plans. Instead of sending Dolan to the underworld, they place his soul in the cycle of life and death, reincarnating him as a newborn human baby. When Dolan first opens his eyes, he finds himself gazing at an ordinary man and woman. The woman, excited to see her baby's eyes open, names him Dolan. She introduces herself as his mother and the man beside her as his father. She also mentions that Dolan has an older brother. Judging by their joyful faces, Dolan assumes he's been reborn into a happy family. As time passes, Dolan grows into a tall young swordsman who enjoys the simple pleasures of his village life. One day, as he's admiring the sunset, a girl named Eri runs up to him. Dolan glances at her and then at the calm village behind her, feeling a deep sense of peace and contentment. Eri notices his subtle smile and asks if something's bothering him. He assures her everything's fine, and together they head back to the village. I think Dolan is just silently being thankful to the gods for gifting him with this peaceful life instead of giving him the endless sleep he once sought. He currently lives in a small village named Varen, which is situated on the north border of the continental kingdom of Arcrest. After his death as a dragon, he was born here as a human and has been spending his days here ever since. The only industry here is agriculture, so Dolan too is an agriculturist, a farmer. Every day, he wakes up by the ray of sunlight coming through the blinds and then goes out into the fields to work on his farm. This is the only way to earn his daily bread, and he doesn't complain because he gets plenty of water and food to eat this way. After having lunch alone with some bread and soup, Dolan heads out again in the village. Just like every other anime, if you are 15 years old, you are considered an adult. But are you, though? But anyway, Dolan turned 15 a year ago, so he left his home to live on his own as an adult, although he stays in the same village. He goes to the nearby forest with his older brother and uses his trusty fishing rod to catch some fish. Dolan's brother reminds him that he will have to go investigate the swamp near their village tomorrow. Dolan explains why there is even a need to investigate the swamp, telling us that since last month, the lizards from that swamp have disappeared, and that might change the entire ecosystem around it. Dolan's brother doesn't want Dolan to go to such a dangerous place alone, as it was supposed to be Garrison's job originally. Dolan doesn't want to step back from his responsibilities, and the only reason he is helping the elders is because the captain and the others are busy guarding the village. Dolan's brother offers to go with him as he cares for his brother's safety. But Dolan is a grown man at the age of 16 and doesn't want to cause his older brother any trouble. He promises his brother that he will be just fine, telling him not to worry as he will be only going to the swamp to check out the place and nothing else. He manages to catch loads of big fish and brings back a whole bucket of them. On his way back, he meets up with his two friends, Malida and Albert, who become amazed to see the sheer numbers of fish he has caught all by himself. Malida doesn't get why Dolan went out fishing instead of preparing for the investigation. In reply, Dolan claims that he has been preparing little by little for the past several days and assures her that he will be fine. He also thanks her for helping him by persuading the village chief and the other elders into letting him take this job. Malida thanks Dolan back, saying that he is the one who has always been helping her with her and Albert's training. Speaking of which, Dolan asks both Malida and Albert if they are heading out soon. Malita replies in the affirmative, informing Dolan that they have a meeting about the next training session for the little ones soon and will have to leave the village for it. But Albert tells Dolan to not worry about it and advises him to prioritize his investigation. Dolan takes his leave from his friends and heads back home. He guts a fish and heavily seasons it with salt. While preparing the fish, he tells us about the monsters residing around this village. They are called the bandits, and because this is a far side village, there aren't enough soldiers around to give protection to the villagers. So, the villagers are more or less expected to help each other in protecting themselves. Dolan prepares all of the fish he captured and lets them dry out in the sun. The young girl from earlier, Ari, comes at his front door, reminding him that today is Dolan's magic practice day. Dolan asks Ari if she came here only to get him, and she gives the excuse that she was just passing by. Anyway, Dolan heads outside and goes to his grandma's house to train. In front of his grandma and Ari, he demonstrates how magic exists in this world. He recites a basic magic spell by saying the phrase, "Laws of power, hear my voice, become an arrow and pierce my foe." Right after, he shouts energy bolt, which literally releases an energy bolt that blasts the dummy into bits. Dolan's grandma Magaru is impressed at Dolan's offensive magic, as she has always been, and commends the boy for understanding the fundamentals well. Dolan gives all the credit to the old lady, telling her that he is only so good thanks to her teachings. Now that his offensive magic training has come to an end, Lady Magaru decides to make him practice magical medicines, which he is apparently worst at. After spending a long time studying and practicing magical medicines, Dolan meets an oddly attractive woman in the evening. The village chief introduces the woman as Christina, a young noble lady who will be staying at their village for the next couple of days. Dolan shakes hands with Christina and immediately realizes that she is someone very strong and skilled. Dolan goes to his parents' house to have dinner with them, and there it is revealed that he has a younger brother named Marco. Dolan's dad suggests Dolan get a wife since he has been pretty lonely lately. Dolan expresses his desire to be single a little longer, and his dad respects it, telling him that he is free to make his own decisions as he is an adult now. Marco mentions the swamp investigation, which worries Papa and Mama Dolan, and Dolan assures all of them that everything will be fine and he will return safely with a great story to tell them. The next morning, the captain of the village offers to accompany Dolan, but Malita stops him from doing so because he has other duties to fulfill. The nun of the village, Letitia, gives Dolan a simple goddess's blessing. His grandma Magaru comes there, informing him that he might end up running into trouble, as that is what her fortune-telling showed her. So, she tells him to be careful out there. Just before Dolan is about to leave, Ari gives him a lunchbox, telling him to eat it on the road. He thanks everyone for being so wholesome, and then leaves for the journey. He walks the entire way, stopping several times to drink and rest. He explains to us why the disappearance of the lizards affects his village. Apparently, the lizards in the swamp occasionally interacted with the village, but when they disappeared, it just felt odd to Dolan. So, the lizard's disappearance actually affected Dolan and not the village, and that is the reason why he himself volunteered to investigate what happened. He reaches the swamp, not knowing what he might discover there, and places his hand on the ground, instantly figuring out why the lizards are no longer living here. According to his analysis, the Earth's elemental power has gotten too strong, and the water's elemental power has weakened, and that is why the lizards have moved away. Dolan remembers the fortune-telling of Lady Magaru, and knowing that her foretelling is almost never wrong, he suspects that there's something that has deliberately caused the change of the elemental power levels. At that moment, he senses a strong presence nearby and brings out his sword to fight it. Under the current conditions, only strong monsters can reside here. So Dolan can only imagine how strong this unseen monster is. The monster is a lamia, a species that looks half human, half snake. The lamia seems to not have any battle experience at all, so she just moves her hands around, making her look like a total clown. Before Dolan can misunderstand and attack her, she makes it clear to him that she doesn't want to fight him. At that moment, a giant earth elemental monster emerges behind them and attacks the lamia. Dolan reacts quickly and cuts the hand of the earth elemental. He hides behind a giant mushroom with the Lamia and tells her that the only reason the elemental has emerged is the same reason the lizards also left this place: the change in the elemental power levels. In any case, Dolan will have to deal with the monster. But first he introduces himself to the Lamia, learning that her name is Selena. Selena has the ability to use magic, so Dolan suggests she fight the elemental alongside him. She hesitates to work together with a human she has just met, but Dolan's aura is just too great for him to refuse. So, she ends up joining him in his fight and helps him subdue the elemental. Dolan uses his sword to deflect any attacks coming towards Selena, and Selena casts a giant magic spell, summoning a gigantic snake that holds down the elemental. This buys Dolan enough time to close the gap between him and the elemental. With swift speed, he leaps towards the elemental and imbues his sword with draconic magic, cutting the monster down perfectly. The sand reforms back with earth, and some gets splashed at Selena, giving the viewers quite the fan service. Moving along, Dolan becomes properly acquainted with Selena, this time, and camps nearby with her at night. Selena is happy to see that there is a human who isn't afraid of her appearance. Dolan, being Earth's most feared dragon, once met much more stranger creatures, and that explains why he isn't scared of anything at all. Anyway, Selena explains that the only reason she came to the swamp was to find a husband for herself, as she became an adult after turning 17. Speaking of which, Lamias need strong men as their husbands because the regular ones die from their poison. She keeps giving subtle hints to Dolan that they should get married and have babies, but Dolan shows no interest at all, being the Chad he is. He proceeds to make the stew following his mom's recipe and serves it to Selena, who is overwhelmed by the flavor of this delicacy. Seeing Dolan praise his mom, Selena asks him if he loves his family a lot. Dolan agrees and pities the lonely dragon he once was. The next morning, he takes his leave, wishing Selena the best of luck on finding a partner. He gives her some of his life energy as a parting gift, but it turns out to be too strong for her, as his life energy is still of a dragon. As the sun rises, he once again admires its beauty for a second and parts his ways with Selena, telling her to visit his home anytime. This was the end of the first part of this series. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching. Bye. Haruka is a high school loner like us who finds himself transported to another world with the worst possible skills and is forced to survive solo. Deep in the forest of this magical world, a pack of mischievous goblins is minding their own business, enjoying a lively barbecue and roasting pork over an open fire. Unbeknownst to them, Haruka lurks in the shadows, hiding behind the bushes, waiting for the right moment to steal their food. However, he makes a careless mistake and accidentally steps on a branch, producing a loud snap that immediately alerts the goblins. Startled, the goblins rush toward the source of the noise, while Haruka bolts in the opposite direction. Just as they close in, he suddenly leaps into the air, and when the goblins reach the same spot, they plunge into a concealed pit. It turns out the entire setup was a trap, meticulously planned as a backup strategy to capture them. He removes his cloak and introduces himself to us, explaining that he's just a random guy who's been transported to this isekai world. He recalls the day this phenomenon happened. Going back to that day, Haruka is seen reading manga all alone in his classroom. He is a total loner with no friends and claims that it is his own decision to not hang out with his classmates, bros on pure copium. Anyway, there are many groups in his class, and amongst them, there are the group of delinquents, the girls who think too highly of themselves cause they are hot, the gym bros, the nerds, the class reps, and finally, the normies. Since Haruka is a total weeb, he doesn't deem himself to be fit into any of the groups, and that is why he chooses to be alone. At least that is what he claims. While everyone is hanging out during lunchtime, Haruka is alone, regretting ever being born into this world. Suddenly, a bright light from below illuminates the entire classroom, causing all of the students to panic. Haruka the weeb, however, is unsurprisingly calm when he notices that the bright light is coming from what looks like a magic circle. He compares it to what looks exactly like the one in the manga he is reading. As a proud weeb, he gets excited for a second before realizing that going to another world will be quite bothersome. So, he tries to sneak out of the classroom. But no matter how hard he tries, he fails to open the door to the outside. He tries to break the door open by kicking it and then throwing a chair at it. However, nothing works, and he runs out of time to make his escape. As a last resort, he enters the ceiling through the vents and technically escapes the classroom. However, the magic circle still reaches him and transports him to a cliché, nothing but white room. Haruka expects a fat king or a beautiful princess to welcome him, but there is only a homeless-looking old man in the distance. When the old man notices Haruka, he frantically rushes towards him and asks him what he is doing here after all this time. According to the old man, Haruka's classmates already went through the welcoming procedures and have left for the isekai world. Apparently, this homeless old man is the god of this world, and he presents Haruka with a list of cheating skills to choose from. However, there is a slight problem. The skills in this list can only be taken once, and since all of Haruka's classmates have gone through the list, they have taken the op ones already, leaving Haruka to choose from only the crappy skills. After seeing that none of the skills are worth having, Haruka then takes a look at the equipment lists. He finds that in the Berserker set, every single one of them is taken except for the Villager set. There is also a pair contact lenses in this list as well. Both of them are super useless, so Haruka swipes left and looks at the martial arts set, where there is only a stick left, making him wonder how he is supposed to beat monsters of this world with just a freaking stick. He needs at least a sword or a spear, but there are none left. Well, it was his bright idea to hide inside the ceiling, which led to him being summoned much later, so he cannot blame anyone else. So, he goes back to the skills section again to select from what's left and finds that the only ones there are well-being, calisthenics, and walking. He can't believe that walking is even considered a skill and screams loudly to vent out his anger. He takes a look at the magic section and sees that unsurprisingly types of magic like healing, flame, lightning, fire, dark, charm, etc., all of them are taken. The only ones left are element boost, death, temperature weight, and packing movement, and Haruka has no idea what either of them does. There is a special skill called company communicator, which doesn't make sense as well because, judging by the name, the skill only seems fit for an office worker. In the title section, the only ones left are shut-ins and neats. These are all of the skills on the list, and Haruka doesn't like any of them, so he goes back to talk with the old man, demanding to know if he will even get through the first town with these shitty skills. He begs the old man to give him a better list, but there is nothing the old man can do. So as a compensation, the old man gives Haruka all of the skills left on the list and teleports him to a forest in this world. Standing in the middle of the wilderness, Haruka loses all hope. Haruka expected that the old man would at least show him some sort of mercy and send him to a town or a village. Instead, Haruka is now inside an unknown forest filled with monsters. He takes a look around and discovers a pouch on the ground in front of him. Haruka picks up the pouch, assuming that inside is the Villager set that was in the equipment list. Expecting nothing out of the ordinary, he opens up the pouch and learns that it can hold infinite items, making it more useful than any of his crappy skills. Every single item that he got from the list is stored inside of it, including a cloak, a pair of leather boots, contact lenses, a wooden stick, a ring, and a jewel. Haruka brings out the cloak and wears it, becoming happy that it suits him. He then opens the system menu to look at his stats, but the system interrupts him, telling him that he must first roll a die. Seeing this message, Haruka remembers that there was a certain rule called rolling dice in which if the user rolled 1, for example, 1 point would be allocated to his chosen stat. So, Haruka rolls the dice and hits a double M. He has no clue what M stands for and assumes that it means minus since he is getting hit with the worst luck today. In any case, he allocates all of it to his luck. The status menu then pops up, showing that all of his stats like HP, MP, power, speed, and dexterity are set at 10 points with the only exception of luck. which is set at max points. Seeing that his luck skill is off the charts, Haruka realizes that the M in the dice stood for max. He looks at his own skill and sees that he has an extra skill called Subjugate, which only a guy who isn't in a party can use. This allows the user to make monsters follow their command. Since Haruka is a true loner, he can use it. Now that the overview is done, Haruka starts walking ahead with the initial goal to find some food and make himself a place to stay. As Haruka wears the contact lenses, he learns that it allows him to appraise things. He appraises all sorts of things around him and finds a bunch of edible mushrooms nearby, since his other dimensional bag has infinite storage. He places all of them inside and then proceeds to collect water as well from the nearby river. Haruka sees that there is a cave in the distance, so he goes to explore it, knowing that there may be monsters inside. Inside his bag, Haruka finds a magic lantern and a magic tent. So he sets up camp there and uses his temperature magic to light up a campfire. Seeing that things are going pretty well, he starts to think that the leftover skills are useful as well. Taking his initial statement back, before going to sleep, Haruka checks his status menu again and finds out that his temperature skill has leveled up and he has unlocked fire magic. Wow, somehow everything is working well for the protagonist. Isn't that pretty convenient? The loner in another world wakes up in the morning, feeling relieved that no monsters attacked him. Haruka's item, the magic lantern, had a bonus effect that repelled monsters, so maybe that is why he didn't get approached by anything at night. Haruka's stomach starts to growl, so he sets up a pan over the fire to have breakfast. He cooks some cured meat with the mushrooms he collected earlier and then eats it whole. Haruka got the frying pan and the knife from the villager Aset, so he is thankful that the old man allowed him to take all of the leftover skills. Speaking of the villager Aset, Haruka wonders who this guy even is and if he was some sort of wilderness survivor. In any case, Haruka must figure out where he will go from here. He figures that the cave will work as his temporary home, so all he's got to work on now is food and security. While exploring the forest, Haruka collects some mushrooms that refill stamina and some medicinal herbs in case of an injury. Out of nowhere, Haruka's appraisal skill detects 2 goblins nearby, who should be the weakest mobs according to the norms. However, judging from their stats, they are way stronger than Haruka is. Haruka knows that he will have to fight the monsters of this forest eventually, so he decides to do it now. He infuses some of his magical energy into his trusty stick and hits the first goblin in the head. With the second goblin remaining, Haruka yoinks it away with a heat blast attack, passing his first battle with flying colors. Haruka gets filled with confidence. He brings back one of the goblin's weapons to the cave, although he deems it useless as it's quite heavy. Haruka opens the status menu and learns that he has leveled up. As a reward for leveling up, all of his stats and skills have doubled, making him realize that he can just get overpowered by bullying poor goblins in the forest. Haruka has unlocked a new ability called Magic Wrap, and on day 3, he uses it to boost his physical stats plus his defense. Haruka goes out to explore the forest again and first looks for food to eat. He has already grown sick of collecting mushrooms, so he decides to level up his stats instead and covers himself with Magic Wrap before going out on a hunt. With enhanced movement speed and physical ability, Haruka dashes through the forest at swift speed and hunts down 2 goblins behind the bushes before they know it. Haruka becomes so confident that he decides to take on 3 goblins at once. This time, he gets scared by their masculinity and so sneaks out of there, deciding to level up his stats more before taking on more than 2 enemies at once. From there on, Haruka hunts goblins every day and improves his magic at night. On day 5, Haruka becomes strong enough to defeat a goblin with 1 hit, so he focuses on decorating his base more and adds a gate to the cave. At night, when Haruka is hunting down a rabbit, his perception skill detects someone nearby. It's Haruka's classmates. Firstly, there is the delinquent group, the popular girls group, the gym bros, the nerds, and the class reps. Being the unsocial loner, Haruka doesn't want to do anything with them, but he is secretly a fan of the class rep, and that is why he takes a step forward hoping get one glance at her. But bro stops himself as he is a big fan of solo leveling and convinces himself to stay true to his loner ways. That's it for the first part of this series. If you want to see more of Haruka's chaotic loner adventures, drop a comment and hit subscribe for part 2. And as always, stay safe and take care. Bye. Seeing his classmates, Haruka quickly hides himself behind the bushes. One of the guys in the delinquents group hears something moving in the bushes and becomes suspicious of it. He deduces the exact location where the noise was coming from and, like a villain, slowly moves his hands towards it, making even me, the narrator, feel like I'm about to be violated. Thankfully, when the delinquent moves the bushes away, only a rabbit comes out of it. This leaves the entire delinquent group disappointed, and they walk away hoping to find something interesting to amuse themselves. Haruka is relieved that he was undetected, but he doesn't run away from the forest to be left unseen. Instead, he goes to spy on the delinquent group, even though he himself states that he doesn't want to get involved with the likes of them. The only reason he is spying on them is because he is curious as to why they are here and what they are gossiping about. He stands carefully behind a tree and eavesdrops on their conversation. From what he hears, the topic of the delinquents' conversation is the measurement of their class president's melons. According to them, those chug jugs still stand out even in this isekai world. It's a pretty lame and disappointing conversation, but what else can you expect from a third-grade gang of perverts? Haruka cannot believe that these creeps are the same as ever and recalls how whenever they set their eyes on a female, they make the same trashy, shitty remarks on their clothing and legs. He becomes concerned for the girls though, as there is no law and order in this medieval world. He remembers that their dependable class president is leading the girls and becomes certain that she will teach the delinquents a lesson if they try to cross the line. Anyway, the blonde guy bullies one of his group members for a second because that's what they do, and then subtly mentions having a skill that can help them get girls to do whatever they want. All of them then head back to their classmates, and so Haruka also heads back to his cave, showing no further interest in the people he doesn't care for. For dinner, Haruka cooks mushrooms, again. While the mushrooms are being roasted, he checks his stats menu and finds out that his loner job title has leveled up. It's probably because he hid himself from his classmates. Jokes aside, Haruka wishes to increase his overall base level, which is currently at 3, and wonders if he should start grinding goblins again. He has the Master of None and Blockhead skills and wonders what these two skills even do. After researching them for an entire hour, he discovers that the Master of None skill makes him unable to focus and unable to hone any skills at all. However, it also has its perks. It lets him do other household things pretty well, allowing him to tidy up his cave house even more. On the other hand, the Blockhead skill's name refers to a puppet on a string, meaning that the puppet is useless. Haruka finds this skill to be completely worthless and decides to vent out his anger on the mushrooms by eating all of them at once. He becomes upset once again as he is completely fed up with eating mushrooms over and over and hopes that he could eat at least fish, if not meat, one day. Later at night, when Haruka is about to sleep, he hears the noise of swords clanging and goes out to check who is causing the fuss. He assumes that it's those delinquents, but still goes out to check since it's currently midnight. Much to his surprise, he finds that it's actually the nerd group who are trying to take down a pack of goblins all by themselves. Haruka laughs seeing the nerds struggling for a second and then wonders if he should help them out, to make sure that they do need his help. He first appraises them and finds out that their average base level is 16 and they have way better jobs than he does. As a matter of fact, Haruka is the only guy whose job isn't an actual job. He gets kind of jealous seeing that everyone else has cheat skills, while he's only got the worthless leftover skills. Haruka tells us more about his school and its students. Being one of the top schools in Japan, Haruka's class was full of the best athletes in the entire nation. Not only that, they had the graders, children of celebrities, and the future supermodels. So, it's a mystery to Haruka as to how and why a below average, low-IQ student like him ended up getting into the same school. Anyway, Haruka ends up choosing not to help the nerds because it's pretty typical for nerds to be experts in an isekai world. As he is about to leave the place, his appraisal skill detects a dangerous presence, and he sees that there are 2 goblins who are approaching the nerds behind their backs. Not wanting the nerdy nerds to get injured, Haruka steps up with his stick and takes down both goblins in a matter of seconds. He then turns to the nerds, who didn't even notice that he came here to help them. Haruka gets thanked by everyone, but he fails to give them a reply because he simply has forgotten how to speak with people. So, instead, he leads them to the cave to show off his base and leaves them completely stunned. All of them are amazed to see how well Haruka is doing in this world, even though he is all alone and happily explores around the house. Since they are his guests, Haruka pretends that he didn't see the others coming to this forest, and while serving them tea, he asks them if they came out here alone. The nerds reluctantly reveal that they are all currently on the run. To elaborate, they go back to the very day they got transported into this world. After finding themselves inside of a forest, most of the students panicked while the nerds discovered the status menu because, well, they are nerds. The delinquents threatened to beat the nerds if they didn't teach them everything as well and got to learn about the status menu as well. The class president kept her composure and asked everyone to calm down, telling them that they shouldn't cause any noise as that could attract the nearby monsters. Perhaps she jinxed it, because at that very moment, a pack of goblins holding wooden clubs attacked them, making even the class president lose her composure. Not only the girls, even the toughest of the toughest, the delinquents lost their sh*T. Quite unexpectedly, only the nerds stepped up to save everyone's asses and brought out their pre-chosen gear to fight the goblins. The guy advertising McDonald's protected himself and his team with a shield. The guy who handicapped himself by blocking his eye with his hair used his sword. The regular-looking guy hit the goblins with a hammer. And lastly, the typical nerd with the nerdy glasses used magic spells to knock out the goblins. Seeing the nerds doing their part perfectly, the delinquents regained their confidence and stepped up to help the nerds. Both groups worked together and defeated all goblins without any difficulty. The class president played the role of a leader and instructed everyone to move somewhere safer. Soon after, they found a riverside area, and with the nerds' isekai knowledge, they set up camp there. The class president put everyone to work by placing them into different teams, and everything went well as they worked as one well, until they didn't. One of the girls from the self-entitled group demanded to know they had to do all this work. They no longer wanted to help the team and ditched their classmates. And following their footsteps, the delinquents also counted themselves out, leaving the nerds to do all of the work. The class president requested that everyone work together, but nobody listened to her any longer and counted themselves out, telling the president to handle everything alone. The class that came together fell apart in seconds. Still, the president and the nerds didn't give up and kept doing all the work while the others slacked around. They didn't work at all and kept complaining about how boring everything was in this world. When a group of goblins attacked their camp, only the nerds stood up to defend their base. The nerds overworked themselves, but still they kept on going and grinded levels. The leader of the nerds found out that there was a skill called Charm that granted the user control over people. Then there was another skill called Puppeteering, which is pretty self-explanatory. The delinquents picked both of the skills from the list back when everyone was inside the White Room. The girls knew that the delinquents would use those skills on them, so they also leveled themselves up to stand up to the delinquents. However, the delinquents didn't give up so easily. They too leveled up their stats by hunting down goblins at night and discussing their schemes in the dark. The nerds kept a close eye on them and learnt of their plans of creating a harem. Not knowing what to do, they reported everything to the class president, who wondered what they should do to stop the delinquents. First and foremost, she decided to level up her skills as well, because she too is a girl, and decided to deal with the delinquents later. A few days passed, and the delinquents succeeded in unlocking their charm and puppeteer skills. They decided to use that skill on the president, but that ended up badly for them as the president defeated all of them in no time, rendering them unconscious. The nerds came there at that very moment, and one of them used their concealment skill on the delinquent's charm and puppeteer skill to ensure that they never used it again. The nerds exposed the delinquents' forced harem plans to everyone. so everyone unanimously agreed to kick the delinquents out of the camp. But this wasn't the happily ever after the students were expecting it to be. The delinquents came back again and attacked the students at the camp, showing them no mercy at all. They set the camps on fire and left after burning everything down, telling the students that they would be back again to make them suffer once again. The nerds took all the blame on themselves for what happened, which led the self-entitled girls group to point their fingers at them even more. The president defended the nerds, telling everyone that they did nothing wrong, but almost no one took her side and forced the nerds to also leave their unofficial clan. The nerds took off and then came to this forest where Haruka found them and brought them to his house. After listening to this entire story, Haruka is extremely sympathetic towards them and decides to throw a mushroom party to cheer them up. The next day, he spends the entire day with the nerds and realizes that sometimes it's fun not being a nerd. At the end of the day, Haruka is still a solo player, so he bids the nerds farewell, wishing them best of luck on their journey and hands them a bag of mushrooms as a parting gift. After everything about the president, Haruka begins to worry for her as well and decides to check up on her. He explores the forest in search of her and encounters a cobloid that bites his left hand. After beating the cobloid's head with the wooden club several times, Haruka knocks it out and wins the battle. He then continues to explore the place and eventually finds the riverside campsite, which is completely empty. Suddenly, his appraisal skill detects an enemy nearby and even shows him the footprints of the said enemy. Haruka follows the footprints and finds that the footprints are of the self-titled girl groups. He doesn't want to encounter them at all because he knows that he will only end up getting belittled by them. The girls see Haruka's face and chase him, asking him if he isn't friends with the nerds. Although Haruka is on good terms with the nerd group and has traded many comic books with them, he doesn't feel comfortable calling them his friends. Still, he stops, asking the girls why they are looking for them since they were the ones who drove them away. The girls explain, saying that they want to apologize to the nerds because it was for them that they are still alive. They further explain, stating that their survival skills are 0, and without the nerds, they are really struggling in the forest. Haruka doesn't want to sell out the nerds, so instead he decides to teach the entitled girls how to survive on their own. They also beg him to teach them how to survive on their own, which triggers his subjugation skill to activate at that moment, placing all of them under its effect. If I remember correctly, allows the user to command the entities around them. This basically means that he can now command the 3 girls into doing whatever he wants, like making them hunt monsters for him or gather materials for him. Because they are currently under the subjugation effect, they cannot do a single thing without Haruka's command, making him question how he is supposed to cancel it. At that moment, the president comes there and becomes happy to see that Haruka is alive and well. That's it for the second part of this series. If you want to see more of Haruka's chaotic loner adventures, drop a comment and hit subscribe for part 3, and as always, stay safe and take care. Bye. Cry is a risless, talentless treasure hunter who desperately wants to retire, but his friends never let him leave their side. The story begins with a red-haired kid encouraging his 5 friends to become treasure hunters when they grow up, as they will be able to visit treasure vaults and obtain many riches and glory. The 3 girls in his friend group and the cardboard boy agree to share his goal, except for one ugly-looking kid, Cry, who has his mouth wide open. The red-haired kid continues and tells everyone that if they do become treasure hunters, they will be able to become the best heroes in the world. The kids then look back and tell Cry that one day they should all visit the imperial capital, Zabrudia. This was a flashback of Cry back when he was a kid. He has grown up now and is currently walking through the streets of the imperial capital. He explains to us how becoming a treasure hunter makes someone a hero of this world. Treasure hunters travel around the world and explore ruins called treasure vaults to collect relics hidden inside, risking their lives fighting monsters known as phantoms. In return, they get rewards such as vast riches and glory. Most of the treasure hunters join clans for fortification, and the best clans in the capital are called First Steps. Cry is heading to the clan as they are currently holding interviews to recruit potential new members. In this world, A clan is a collection of parties that come together to assist one another. It's an adventurer's guild, basically. Solo hunters in this world can only go so far, and that is why it's vital to join a good party if a hunter is aiming for higher feats. Unfortunately for Cry, he has failed several times to join a proper party, and that is why he is here to take the interview. When he is waiting in line, the girl behind him asks him if he's here looking for a party as well. She apologizes to him for asking him a question out of nowhere, saying that everyone else looked intimidating. That's why she approached him. Yeah, a guy in a Susie cloak hiding his face definitely doesn't look like an intimidating creep. Anyway, the girl introduces herself as Ruda Runebeck, a hunter who just got promoted to level 3 rank. She holds out her hand, but Cry awkwardly moves his face away, avoiding the handshake, and introduces himself as well. Nobody asked, but Ruda tells Cry anyway why she came here. She struggled to clear a treasure vault called the White Wolf's Den, and that is why she wants to join a party, as that would increase her chances of clearing it. A hunter overhears their conversation and mocks Ruda for trying to take on the White Wolf's Den while only being level 3. The guy with a big smirk on his face tells her that an amateur hunter like her shouldn't even dream of joining a prestigious clan like First Steps. Ruda takes his comments seriously and challenges him to a fight to prove her worth. As they argue, Cry gets hit with a headache, and he slowly moves away. Ruda brings out her trusty knife to fight the guy, but one of the security guards there stops them from escalating this mat any further. The guard threatens to oust the two hunters from the interview immediately, so Ruda calms herself and withdraws her knife. With things becoming peaceful again, Cry is relieved, and it seems that he is trying to hide his face from the security guard. Minutes later, both Cry and Ruda enter the clan's building, and Ruda specifically becomes overwhelmed after seeing how many hunters are here for the interview. She notices that Cry isn't that surprised, and that makes her assume that he has taken crowded interviews like this before. Cry tells her that this is his 5th time at this interview, and she realizes that he has failed to join a clan every other time. According to Cry, skill is everything because they can quickly rise in rank and make a name for themselves, while those without talent cling to the few opportunities they get. Ruda sees that in the recruitment section, there is a hunter party in the distance who looks too flashy. Cry recognizes them as the Arc Brave party, the strongest party in the First Steps clan. They recently managed to clear a level 7 treasure vault with only 6 members in their team. They are known as the elite of the elite, and their leader is Arc Rodden, who is glowing like a princess in the typical soap advertises. Cry tells Ruda to give her best to join their party, as her success as a hunter will be guaranteed if she is led by Arc Rodden. Sadly, there is one problem: the Arc Brave party has never accepted a new member through these interviews, meaning that they are only here for show-off. Ruda realizes that her chances of joining this party are 0. So she looks the other way and sees that there is a deck in the back with only an empty chair at their table. The guy from before Greg overhears their conversation once again and comes to mock Ruda yet again for not knowing what the empty desk represents. He explains that the table belongs to a party that originally founded First Step, known as the Grievers. The Grievers were once a party of youngsters that came to this capital a few years ago who rose to fame in the capital with their dazzling talent. This party's full name is the Grieving Souls, and all of the members of this party are Cry's childhood friends, the ones we saw dreaming of becoming hunters at the very beginning of this video. Apparently, it's the first time in years they are accepting new members, and that is the only reason why hundreds of applicants have gathered here for the interview. Even the solo hunters who are against joining parties have gathered here with the only hope to join the Grieving Souls. But it doesn't seem that the Grieving Souls would be recruiting anyone since there is nobody on their desk to take the interview. A red-haired side character starts screaming all of a sudden, saying that he will become the main character. But we all know that's never going to happen. He annoys everyone there, and to shut him up, Tino, one of the solo hunters in the First Step clan, steps up and challenges him to a fight. Cry takes Ruda aside before the fight begins, sensing that something bad is about to happen. As he is about to sneak away with Ruda, Tino sees him and rushes over to him. referring to him as master. The leader of Orphan comes there and reveals that Cry is the clan master of First Steps and the leader of the Grieving Souls. Not gonna lie, I never expected this risless loser to be the greatest clan's master. Years earlier, Cry and his friends arrived at the capital to pursue their dream of becoming the greatest treasure hunter team, and according to Greg, Cry stood out the most because of his monstrous talent and founded the strongest party with his childhood friends. But Cry tells us otherwise. He takes a look back at those times several years ago, when he and his friends just made their way to the imperial capital. His friends had monstrous talents, and they completed many treasure vaults for beginners in record speed. In one of the treasure vaults, a monster suddenly attacked Cry, but Cry's redhead friend saved him. In comparison to them, Cry was ordinary and would only get in their way. But they were kind enough to never say that Cry was weak and talentless. It didn't take Cry much time to realize that if he stayed too long with them, he would get in their way, so he made a selfless decision to leave their party. One evening, he gathered his friends and first thanked them for everything they had done for him. However, his friends didn't want him to leave. Rather, they wanted him to become their leader. According to them, Cry was great at giving speeches and basically forced him to stay in their party. And that is how, for years, he has been the leader of the Grieving Souls and the clan leader of First Steps, even though he is talentless AF. He desperately wishes to retire from being a hunter, hence the name, Let This Grieving Soul Retire. Going back to the present, both Ruda and Gray are astonished after finding out that Cry is the clan master of First Steps. The leader of Orphan, asks Cry why he came so late, and in reply, Cry gives the excuse that he overslept. Ark doesn't believe anything that Cry says, and according to Cry, none of the hunters of this guild ever believes him. Ark jokes around with Cry, which Tino doesn't like, so she tells Cry to kick him out of the clan. Tino is a hothead solo hunter who is an apprentice of Cry's childhood friend Liz. She keeps arguing with Ark, but he ignores her completely and asks Cry if he has any suitable candidate in mind who he wants to recruit in his clan. Although they have enough members in their clan, Cry claims that he has indeed found a suitable candidate for the Brave party and tells Ark to choose them without taking an interview. Since it's the clan master's command, Ark agrees without any questions. However, his party members don't like the fact that Cry is forcing his opinion onto them. Before Cry can say who he has chosen, Tino interrupts him, confessing that she has her heart set on her and wants to join his party. Gilbert, the side character redhead from before, once again starts screaming and shouting at Cry, telling him that he should give all of them an equal chance. Cry considers giving this loser a chance and recommends him to Ark, with one condition. But first he asks him if he knows what's most important thing for a hunter. From Cry's perspective, a hunter should never lose. A weak hunter places their entire party in danger. And so Cry wants Gilbert to prove that he is strong enough to not lose. Cry even boasts, saying that he himself has never lost once in his life and becomes praised by everyone. But what everyone doesn't know is that Cry has never been in a proper fight. And that is how he has never lost before. Cry takes out one of the 10 rings from his hands and shows it to every applicant, telling them that if they manage to give the ring to the Brave, he will recommend them to Brave's leader, Orphan. He then throws the ring at Gilbert since he asked for the opportunity first. But just as Gilbert is about to catch the ring, Tino lunges at him and smashes his head away with a kick. She then goes to grab the ring for herself, but many hunters rush towards it at the same time, causing the entire place to become chaotic. Cry mentions that his ring is a valuable relic, so whoever can get it will also get to keep it. He wishes them good luck and walks away, bidding goodbye to both Greg and Ruda. While the entire place is burning to the ground, Cry heads home as he has nothing else to do for the day. His home is actually a grand mansion and the official house of the First Steps clan. The vice clan master of First Steps, Eva Renfeed, comes to him in his chambers and informs him that he has made the first page of the news because of the huge brawl that broke out today. Apparently, the recruitment interview ended with the entire venue getting blown up to bits. And luckily, there is no news of any injuries. The news ends with a statement that the Explorers Association wants Cry to take responsibility for his actions. According to Eva, Rodden has already read this article and hasn't taken it seriously at all. Cry is relieved to hear that is taking this too easily, but instead of taking the responsibility himself, he decides to put the venue's repair bill onto Ark's account and tells Eva to have go to the Explorers Association as well in his place. Eva tries convincing Cry to go to the Explorers Association himself, but Cry refuses to do so as he doesn't want to go outside without a personal escort. He knows that if he doesn't go there, Gark, branch manager of the Explorers Association, will come to visit him personally. Before, Cry used to go out by putting on a disguise using a certain relic, but that has broken after being used too much. Eva assures Cry that there is no one in this world who will attack him if he goes alone during daylight. So Cry goes to the Explorers Association, placing his trust in Eva, and once he reaches there, he basically gets down on his knees and begs for forgiveness before the branch manager can even start scolding him. He promises Gark that he didn't mean to cause any trouble and repeatedly says sorry to him. Gark agrees to let it go this time if Cry's clan takes on a job from their association for free. The Explorers Association gets all sorts of jobs for hunters, and some of the jobs pay very little, and no hunters agree to do them, and Gark wants Cry's clan to take those jobs and do them for free. Cry quickly chooses one of them, which is a rescue mission, and decides to pass it on to Rodden. When he returns to his clan building, he learns from Tino that has left on a job already. Tino tries to prove to Cry that she is worthy to be his wife and shows him the ring that she ended up getting during the brawl at the venue. To reward her, brings out the quest he took from the Explorers Association. But before he can even read it to her, she bolts away. Unfortunately for her, Cry has loads of relics, and he uses one of them that can turn into a hound dog to capture her. Tino begs him to not send her on this mission alone since she is not that strong yet, implying that she wants him to be her teammate. But Cry teams her up with Greg, Ruta, and Gilbert instead, sending all of them on this dangerous mission while he enjoys every bit of it from the sidelines. That's it for the first part of this series. If you liked this video, drop a comment and hit subscribe for part 2. And as always, stay safe and take care. Bye.